Bill Henshaw in your local constitutional coup in California. And as you know, there's been a lot going on with the border wars down there in Texas and the United States. And I'm not sure who has the best of it, but Texas certainly has a lot of legitimate arguments on its side. In fact, they've now started a movement down there called Texit, for Texas to exit the Union. And I don't know how much Abbott knows down there, the governor and Austin or anyone else. But if we have a state left remaining in the Union, a sovereign independent state, Texas would be it. And they may have the power to do that. And a lot of states, especially south of the Mason-Dixon line, would love to secede. And I think for different reasons, they have the power to do that. It's a very interesting constitutional subject. So we'll see. Whoops, hold on a sec. Oh, sorry about that. So in any event, yeah, it's a very interesting situation. In fact, I hear like about 35% of the people in Alaska want to secede from the Union. And I got news for you people, and you out there in Hawaii, you ain't never been in it. Because when you got admitted as quote unquote states in 1959, this union had been in a perpetual state of abeyance for 100 years. You can now add 65 more to it that we haven't had sovereign independent states, and that's what we want to get back. And how? If we do that, we're all going to be so much better. Get our federated Republican government of defined and limited powers back in operation and get the earliest possible exit of the elective despotism. Just like they used to have in the old days in Nazi Germany with Uncle Adolf. And that's another story, by the way, you'll learn more about now in this video. But, when I've got books that were well written by a guy named Anthony Cset. One of them is called Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler. And they put him into power over there with the idea almost certainly of creating World War II, which is exactly what happened. But it was the Wall Street banksters that did it. So it's a long story about that time for another day. But getting back to the subject matter here, with the exit of Texas from the Union, that's really interesting because for those of you that don't know, Texas was admitted pursuant to the treaty power of Congress, not Article 4, Section 3. So I don't know what effect that will have. And by the way, there are some people out there citing a case called Texas v. White. I think it's 7 Vol 300 in about 1868. So after the war between the states and Reconstruction. But that case isn't relevant as the court ruled that Texas was never out of the Union. But at that point in time, the court didn't know what it knew later about that 14th Amendment. So therefore, it gets to be a very interesting question indeed about whether Texas is in or out of the Union. And the big deal here was it took them 18 years because they didn't know until 1886 on the U.S. Supreme Court that the secret intent of that amendment was to create subordinate corporate birthright citizens. And they got told that in a case called Southern Pacific Railroad v. Santa Clara County, right down the road from where I am. And they reversed the ruling they were going to make, and they ruled in favor of the railroad and said they couldn't be taxed. But that whole situation is, wow, it's astounding. You'll learn more about that, by the way. Send me an email, youwinningcourt@gmail.com, to get my modestly priced constitutional defense document packets. So if Texas is out of the Union, it's not for that reason. It's because the Union ceased to exist when the 14th Amendment came along. And that amendment, among other things, as you'll learn, created new states composed of these subordinate corporate entities that have no rights. The de facto national government is bound to respect. Forget about civil rights. Was never designed to work, isn't going to work, only on the extremely rare occasion they have to make it look good. but it's not what we want and it's not what we need. And you're going to find that out. And that's one reason, we're having this, business going on with Texas. And as I said, Alaska's in the mix, and some of the southern states are starting to make some noise, like they did back in the 1850s about secession. Also, it's how bad things are getting, and they all have good points about that. But most all of them don't realize the real truth is they're not represented in the government in Washington D.C. anyway, and haven't been for at least 140 years. And that's because Article 1, Section 2 says that all members of the House or Senate have to be inhabitants of the state they represent. There are no states. How many qualified members do we have not only in Congress today, but you can go back to almost the 39th Congress back in 1865. It would have been quite the same then, but not long thereafter with the 14th Amendment. Now no states, no qualified members of Congress in either house. And it gets a lot better than that too, as you'll learn. Send me an email, uwinningcourt@gmail.com, and you start presenting these numerical arguments that I would today say that almost every fifth or sixth grader could figure out. But since they're not teaching the 3 R's in school anymore, one has to wonder about that. But it is comparatively simple math. Government is not there, and I have a lot more than that you'll learn too. So send me an email, uwinningcourt@gmail.com, and we'll discuss more of these issues. And then you have other states, by the way, like Oklahoma, just north of Texas, but Oklahoma wasn't admitted until 1907. So guess what, Okies? You're not in a state either, and you never have been. Wow, it's just astounding when you think of the magnitude of the deceit that's been foisted off on the American people and all of us, white, black, you name it, because they don't want you to know. And anybody like me that comes in there with these quote unquote white supremacist arguments, get them out of there. Well, the problem is I'm telling the truth, and I did it so well in my South Carolina case, by the way. Just a quickie about that. I got hauled across the country 8 years ago. I can't believe I'm saying this. On 4 different federal unmarked military aircraft. Could have got me there in 8 hours on TWA. It took 2 months. And I finally get there and show up for the quote unquote arraignment. And I'm let in there, shackled hand and foot, and in a red jail suit, which was only used for people charged with murderers or kooks like me. And the judge reads the charge, practicing law without a license. I laughed. I said the problem with that is I don't practice it. I get it right the first time. And then the judge, who turned out to be one of the good ones, by the way, which is a blessing, said, well, we have to have you checked out to be sure you're competent to represent yourself. Oh, if I could have thrown up my hands. Oh, barf at a judge. Beretta v. California, 422 U.S. 806. The problem with that is that the Supreme Court ruled in Barron v. Baltimore, 7 Peters, 243, 1828, the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to the states. Shut the bastards up in 90 seconds at the arraignment, and I never heard a word from them the entire remaining 5 months I was there. And I don't know for sure about that. And the judge, I think, did know. And she was one of the good ones because she came up with the last hearing I was at, and she showed up with a very heavy bandage around her head. She had very aggressive treatment for brain cancer. She was dead like 4 months later at the age of 43, which I didn't know right at the time. But I may have been the last case she did because she knew how important it was. So all that said, I got sent home. And the bastards put me on the street, by the way, with the same $45 I had when I got arrested in the library out here in California. I could have walked 3,000 miles home for all they cared. Luckily, I got a good dear friend who was able to get me money and was able to take the 4-day bus trip from hell. But I got back home. But when you know stuff like this, and this video, by the way, would be $1 million video in a court of record, which they conveniently claim not to have made. Well, you see this. I mean, I just stopped them. I've never seen anything like before, and probably haven't since. Because here I am in my second month of almost my third month of being incarcerated, and they're going to They got somebody here that's going to be an easy one, to get them to pre-bark it out, get it over with in about 15 minutes. And nothing worked out like that at all. It was the craziest thing you've ever seen. And I've got a lot of paperwork from that case that you'll see too. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. And I've got an 18-page hand printed writ of federal habeas corpus, non-statutory, to the U.S. Supreme Court that got there. My dear friend sent it. I sent it to him. He sent it to the Supreme Court, and I didn't hear a word. But that got there, and you see these. I've got copies of these pages. And the good news about this is a lot of leverage for you in your case. Whether it's homeowners association, whether it's child procurement syndicate, or evictions, or mortgages, or whatever. You're going to have documents to present to these bastards before we even get into court. And they're gonna, if they know what they're looking at, and they should, they're gonna know they're picking on somebody here that knows what the hell he's talking about. And that's where you have all the power, because we get one decision on the record with any of these perps, it puts them out of business from coast to coast. And that's what the framers did with that original intent. Those racist framers. Uh, but that's the power we're supposed to have. And if we get back to that government, will put things back on the track they should have been for the last 150 odd years, and it makes things better for you, your children, and your posterity. Just like the framers tried to do when they ordained and established this Constitution to ensure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. That's how exciting it is. Now send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. And remember to subscribe, like the videos, tell your friends, get the word out. The quicker we get a lot of people in there, the quicker we get these bastards off our backs. Thank you.